Hey everyone, welcome to my first tutorial type video. I'll be making more similar videos like this, and do subscribe if you want to stay updated with them. Let's dive in. So in this video, we'll look into how to use the Drizzle ORM and connect it with a Node.js application and a Postgres database. So before we look into the code, let me just quickly explain what an ORM is. So consider this is your Node.js application and this is your Postgres database. Now, we all know that the data that we are dealing with in the Node.js application will be in the object format. So it will be something like this, right? And this same object, if you want to see this in a Postgres database, that is SQL format, it will be in a tabular way. So ID. Now, this Node.js application does not know about tabular form data, and the Postgres database does not know about JavaScript objects. So you need some sort of a middleman that connects this Node.js application with the Postgres database and translates the data between them. That is where the ORM comes in. So this will be like a middleman between the Node.js application and the Postgres database, and we'll call this the ORM. And one such ORM is the Drizzle, which allows you to establish a connection between your Node.js application and the database, and also helps you to convert the data from the JavaScript object to a tabular form, and vice versa too, from tabular form to JavaScript objects. So this is exactly what an ORM helps you with, and Drizzle is one such library that simplifies those functionalities. Now let's look into the code. Here there is a simple Express application. You can spin up however you want. If you want to establish a connection from your Node.js application to a Postgres database, you need the database first, right? So let's go to the pgadmin. For those of you who don't know what pgadmin is, it's just a user interface that helps you to create a database and run it on a server, and then you can view all the data, you can perform SQL queries on them, and there is a lot of features it offers. Do install this pgadmin and the Postgres database for this tutorial. So as you can see, there is a server group here which is called tutorials. I'm just going to create a new server here. Let's name this DB server. So just like any other application requires a server to run, the database also requires a server to run. Now we have the server here, it is in the tutorials server group, and now the connection, it is going to be the local host, and it is going to be running on port 5432. Let's keep this the username as Postgres. The password, let's keep it, so remember this password, and let's save this. Now the server is done. Now we need to create a database, right? So let's go to create database, and now let's give the name for it. Let's name this Drizzle DB, and the user, let's keep it Postgres, and that is it. Let's click on save. Oh, Drizzle DB seems to be already existing, so let's give a new name for it, test. So this is what I'm using, Drizzle DB test. Save. Cool. Okay, now you have the database created. Let's go scroll down to see if it is there or not. Yes, the Drizzle DB is there. Looks good. If you scroll down, if you toggle it, if you click on schemas, and if you scroll down to find the tables, you will see there will be no tables because we have not created any schemas or models, right? So that is where we're going to do next. So let me just minimize this, and I'll go to the Drizzle documentation. So I would highly recommend you to go through this page first. It will give you an overview of what Drizzle ORM is and how it helps you with and everything. But for now, let's click on this documentation link, and if you scroll down, you can see on the left there are multiple databases, not just PostgreSQL. So it basically says that Drizzle ORM is compatible with various other databases as well. But in this video, let's stick with PostgreSQL. And if you scroll down, there are various packages with which you can use Drizzle ORM. I'm just going to stick with this Node Postgres because it is fairly easy to implement. And I'll scroll down here. As you can see here, you have to install these necessary packages to use them. So I'll just copy this. This is the most important part here. Don't skip this. I'll just stop the server, clear it, paste it, I'll run it. Okay, it will take some time to actually install. So okay, as you can see, all the necessary packages are installed. Superb, great. Now what we'll do is we'll go to the documentation again, and there are two ways to actually connect your application to a database, to a Postgres database, which is client connection and pool connection. I'll stick with client, and I'll just copy this, and I'll go to the project, and I want you to create a new folder here which we'll call DB, and inside that you'll create something called DB connect. Okay, so what we're going to do now is establish the connection between our application and the database. So this is the code for that. So the reason it's throwing error because we're using it. I'll just remove this one because we don't need connection string. We don't need to create a client object using the connection string because the below one seems very detailed. Okay, so I'll just quickly explain what this code actually does. this client object helps you to create a new connection from your application to a database. Okay, this is the code for actually making the connection. Now we need to let Drizzle know that there is a new connection between our application database, and the Drizzle needs to access this database, right? So that is where this code comes. I'll also export this DB, export default DB. Okay, now that's pretty much. I'll just remove this one. This is no longer needed, and the client connection is done. We have connected it, and also do one more thing here. I want to ensure that the database is connected or not. When it is running, console.log db connected successfully. Okay, and then catch error. So these are the various fields that we need to configure with. You can change this to localhost if you want. I would suggest you to keep all these values in a env file and do it. I'm just not doing it over here because this is first for testing. Password will be Naveen 2003. That is what I gave over there. The database name will be Drizzle. I think it is Drizzle DB test. Wait, let me just check this one more time. Drizzle DB test. Yes. Okay. Now we need to import this in the server.js file. Correct. So I'll just go here. Import DB from db connect.js. Okay, now what we'll do, I'll just run the server. It has to show us db connected successfully. We'll see. Okay, this is because it is asking us to not extract the client object directly from the pg package. So I'll just do something like this, pg dot client. Okay, so now yes, you can see the server is running at port 8000. The db connected successfully, right? Cool. Now we have everything done. The next thing we need to do is actually create a schema, right? We need to create the models for our application, whatever the model we use. So inside the db folder, I'll just create a new file called schema.js. In here I have to just go to the documentation, go to the overview. In the manage schema section, if you go to the overview, you can find here. Okay, so this is a sample code for you to use it. I'll just use this same syntax here. I'll copy this entire thing. Okay, I'll just copy this entire thing, and the syntax is you have to export constants. I'll just give the name for this user schema, and then I'm just going to create a new table. So this is where you will give the table name. So whatever name you give here will appear over here, okay, in the tables section. Okay, so I'll just give this as users, and you can specify the property UUID, and this is also UUID is just yet another property from the column type. I mean, yet another column type from the Drizzle ORM package. So in here you have to specify the name for it. I'll just name it ID, not null. I mean, let's just keep this as primary key. So not null is already employed, and ID, and we have name here. Name, we'll keep this as varchar, and I'll name this as same as name, and it should not be null. I need one more property. What I'll give is the bio sounds good. Bio varchar, let's name this bio, not null. Okay, so these are basically the column names that will appear on your table over here. So we have the table created. Cool. We'll just remove all the unwanted properties here. Okay, so we have the table created. Now we need to migrate this table to the Postgres database, right? So we need to make it appear here. How do we do that? That is where this migration thing comes here. Okay, if you go to the manage schema section in the documentation, if you click on the migrations here, you will find, so we have created the schema. You can create multiple schemas as well. So you can create various schemas, something like this: export constant, task schema, pg table, tasks, like something like this. Okay, you can specify the column values, everything here. That is same as this one. Okay, you can see that they are asking us to create a drizzle.config.ts file. Since we are using JS, we can just keep it as JS. So what I'll do, in the root directory, create a file called drizzle.config.js, and I'll just copy all of these things here, and I'll just change it into a JS version. So we don't need these things at all. We don't need these things at all. Let's just, this is the host is localhost, the user is Postgres, The password is Naveen 2003. The database is what would be the database here? What would it is? I think it's Drizzle DB test. Why am I keep forgetting the database name? Yes, Drizzle DB test. Okay, that's good. Now everything's done. Database done. Okay, user password done. Now here you have to change this to PG because we are using Postgres, not MySQL. Okay, make sure you do that. Now in the output directory, specify this as Drizzle. So all the migrations that you are generating will be in this Drizzle folder in the root directory. Okay, and also you have to specify the schema file. So schema file is in the DB folder and it is schema.js. Okay, when it's running the migration script, it will check for the code in the schema.js file. That is basically what this means. Okay, so we have got the drizzle.config.js file. Super. The next thing is to actually generate the migration. Now this is the important part. Go to the package.json, write another script here. So what I'll name this migration generate. So here I'll just paste that command that I copied over there. This is the command that I'm going to copy. This is to allows us to generate the migration. Okay, and we have to again change this to PG because we're not using MySQL, we are using Postgres. Okay, now I'll just stop the server, clear it. Now I'll run the script that we have specified in the package.json, right? npm run migration generate. Hopefully it works. Come on. Yes, super. You can see the users table is created. If you go to the Drizzle, you can see there is a new folder that is created, Drizzle. Okay, if you click on that, you will see one migration script here, and click on that. This is basically the SQL version of this code. So you have created a table in the JavaScript object, right, in the JavaScript version, and this is basically the SQL version of the JavaScript code. That's all. Now we have this SQL code. We need to run this SQL code and ensure that the table is created and visible on here. Okay, because even if I refresh, it will not be here because it is not yet pushed to this database. We need to push that. Okay, let's go to package.json migration. We need to push it to the database. I'll just name this migration push, and I'll just paste something that I copied here. So this is node -r esbuild register db/migrate.js. Okay, so this basically allows you to run this migrate.js file which we are about to create now and ensure that the migration script is ran and the table is created, or whatever the SQL command over here it should be executed and it should be reflected over here. That's the basic idea of this migration push, this command. Okay, now we are going to create this migrate.js file inside this db folder. Let's go to the db folder and create this migrate.js file. And so for the sample code, I'll just go to the documentation, and where is the run the migrations? Yes, so we already have the connection established. The next thing we need is this one. Okay, I'll just copy these things here. Only these things are needed. I'll paste it here. Okay, I'll just remove all the comments. We don't need that. Okay, I'll create a new function. Okay, async function migrate data. Now migrate data, and I'm gonna cut this and paste it inside this function. Okay, now let me just remove that. We don't need this. So db done. We need to import the db, right, the db connect. We need this db. Okay, so let me just go to the migrate.js / dbconnect.js. so I'm importing the db here. I'm just telling this migrate command that I have a Drizzle object and I want to migrate the migration files from the Drizzle folder to the Postgres database. Okay, that's done. That's pretty much done. And also we need to do it one more thing. We have to exit all the process because this is an asynchronous code and it's going to be keep on running if you don't exit it. Process.exit. And also I'll just do one more thing, migrate data, and I'll just want to catch it if any error occurs. And I'll also exit it. Okay, cool. Now this is done. So here you can see this is the migrator is from Postgres migrator. I'll just change that to PG. migrator. Okay, now if I run this command, this will basically run the migrate.js file, which will in turn run this migration script inside the Drizzle folder. After execution, you can see the reflected changes in this database. Let me just run the file now. npm run migration push. We'll see what this does. Okay, this is throwing an error. It's not defined by exports. I think the reason for this error is using this .js. I'll just remove that. I'll see if that works or not. npm run migration push. Yes, if I go to the Postgres database and if I just refresh the tables, you can see my users here and you can see all the columns, the ID, name and the bio. Cool, right? Now this is done. So we have created the table, we have pushed that table to our database. Now let's just perform some operations on them. Let's go to the server. Since I've imported the DB, that's good. I'll just write a query here, app.post request / create, and I'll write request. This is a simple way. Okay, it's not nothing complicated. This is an asynchronous code. Now let me just go to the documentation. I have some doubts. Insert, if you go here, yes. Okay, so how do we do that? It's very simple. db.insert. So we need the user schema. We have to pass the schema or the model here that we have created in the schema.js file. Okay, schema.js, we need what? The user schema. Okay, so we need the user schema, and then the values we need are we can pass UUID value. So I'll just import a UUID. So we need to pass, we cannot pass 1 2 3 4 or anything. We need the UUID. So for that, let me just install UUID. Okay, now I'll import the UUID. I just need the v4 from the UUID, so I'll just import just a v4. Okay, I'll call this v4 function here. So this ID, and then what are the other columns we have? ID, name, bio. So name, I'll just give this as request.body.name, and I'll give the bio as request.body.bio. Okay, so for the request body to get access, we need something called app.useExpress.json. Okay, so we have inserted it. So to get the data, I'll just run this query, await db.select from, again we need to pass the schema here, where, so I'll just do one thing here, id equal to v4. I'll create the ID outside of the command and then put the ID over here so that you can fetch it over here. ID. So where we need something called equals. Okay, so this equal is present in the Drizzle ORM package. Okay, so you can see I've imported it from Drizzle ORM package equals. This allows us to compare the values. So on the left side, we have to specify the ID in the user schema, user schema.id, and on the right side we have to specify the actual value, that is what value we are comparing against. So this is the ID, that is the current user ID, and this is the schema's ID. So we are checking we are basically saying get the user whose ID equal to this ID. So this ID basically is the user schema's ID, user's ID, and this is the ID that we have created over here. So we are just basically comparing it. After storing it, we are retrieving it. So it gives us an array of objects, and just because obviously we are going to get only one data, I'm just going to extract it right over here, the user, and I'll just send the user here, return response.send user. So what we'll do, we'll go to the Postman. I'll just create a new route here, http localhost. This is running on 8000/create, and in the body I'll just pass a JSON, name Naveen, bio I'm a creator, decided to make coding videos. Okay, so if I just, this is a post request obviously. Okay, I think if I click on send, okay, the server is not running. Now I think it should work. Okay, so we have got the data here. So we have stored it in our database and we have got the data. I'll just check in the Postgres database one more time. So in the users, if you want to see the list of all the users, you can perform SQL query on them. What I'll usually do is I'll click on the table, I click on query tool, and I perform this select star from users. So this will basically give a list of all the users for me. And as you can see, this is the user that we have created. The same, likewise, you can do a lot of operations. There is just select that I've done select, I've done insert, and there are other things as well. If you see here, there is insert, there is select, there is query, update, delete, filters, joins, and a lot of other things. And it is very exciting to use Drizzle ORM. So explore the Drizzle ORM. Let me know in the comments what you think, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.